Hello, students. In today's lecture, we are going to learn about dual nature of radiation and matter. NCRT section 11.4 to 11.4. This is disclaimer. Learning objective. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to understand the experimental setup and methodology used to study the photoelectric effect, including the relationship between various parameters like intensity, frequency, and potential difference. Analyze and interpret the experimental observations and graphs to comprehend key concepts like stopping potential, threshold frequency, and their interdependence in the photoelectric effect. So, in today's lecture, we will cover first 11.4 experimental study of photoelectric effect. After that, 11.4.1 effect of intensity of light on photocurrent. Then 11.4.2 effect of potential on photoelectric current. And last, we will study effect of frequency of incident radiation on stopping potential. So let's start. So here 11.4 experimental study of photoelectric effect. Now here question arises, what is photoelectric effect? So basically this is a phenomena where electrons are emitted from a metal surface when light of a high enough frequency shines on it. Look at figure, how light is striking the metal and causing something to happen at the surface. So look at figure, the light is incident on the metal surface and the electrons are ejected from the metal surface. Here the key idea is that not just any light will do, the frequency must be sufficient, which means the light must have enough energy to cause electrons to be released. Now let's focus on what we call these ejected electrons. They are known as photoelectrons. Alright, the ejected electrons are photoelectrons. Emphasize that these are just regular electrons, but we give them a special name because they are released due to the action of light. This term helps us distinguish between electrons that are already free and those that are knocked out by light in this process. The process of releasing these protoelectrons from the metal surface is called photoemission. So, whenever you hear photoemission, think of electrons being emitted because of light energy. And this is a key concept in understanding how light can interact with matter. Let's examine the basic experimental setup used to study the photoelectric effect. Look at the figure showing a glass or quartz tube with two plates inside. This setup is crucial for understanding how light can cause electrons to be emitted from a material. So, pay attention to the labeled parts as each one plays a specific role in the experiment. Now, focus on the first key component. The evacuated tube contains a photosensitive emitter plate labeled C and a collector plate. Photosensitive means that the materials responds to light by releasing electrons. The vacuum inside the tube ensures that electrons can travel freely from the emitter to the collector without colliding with air molecules. Next, let's look at the how the experiment works. So, monochromatic light, which means light of a single wavelength, shines through the window and hits the photosensitive plate C. The wavelength must be short enough, meaning the light has enough energy to cause electrons to be emitted. This step is essential for observing the photoelectric effect, which we will uh, study more deeply here. So, now focus on transparent quartz window in the setup. So this window is important because it lets in light of a specific frequency and intensity to shine directly onto plate C. The frequency of the light determines whether electrons will be emitted, and the intensity affects how many electrons are released. If we talk about an example, so if we use ultraviolet light with a frequency above a certain threshold, electrons will be emitted. But if the frequency is too low, nothing happens, no matter how bright the light is. So let's see what happens after the light hits plate C. So electrons are emitted from plate C and are attracted to plate A, which acts as the collector. The battery creates an electric field that helps move these electrons from C to A, allowing us to measure the resulting current. So now let's focus on the role of the potential difference between plate C and A. By changing this voltage, we can control the energy landscape for the electrons. The resulting current, called the photocurrent, and is measured using a micrometer, which is a very sensitive device that detects tiny currents in microamperes. This allows us to see how the flow of current electrons changes as we adjust the voltage. So notice here the polarity of plate C and A can be reversed using a commutator. A commutator is a switch that lets us swap which plates is positive and which is negative. This is important because it lets us study how electrons behave when the direction of the electric field is changed. All right, and by using this setup, we can set plate A to any desired positive or negative potential compared to the emitter C. This means we can neither attract or repel the emitter electrons, or we can say emitted electrons, depending on the voltage we choose. This control is crucial for investigating how the energy and number of emitted electrons depend on the applied potential, which leads us to deeper insights into photoelectric. Now, when the collector plate A is made positive compared to the emitter plate C, it attracts the electrons that are released from the emitter. This means the electrons which are negatively charged are pulled towards the positive plate. This attraction is essential for detecting the electrons and measuring the current in the circuit. Look at the figure. The voltage between the plates affects the movement of the electron. As a result of electrons being emitted and attracted to the collector, we get a flow of electric current in the circuit. This current is direct evidence that electrons are being released from the metal surface due to incident light. And the emission of electrons and the resulting current shows us the particle like behavior of light, which is a key part of the photoelectric. Now, let's focus on the role of the potential difference. The potential difference or voltage between the ammeter and collector plates is measured using a voltmeter labeled as V in the figure. Alright, this voltage helps us control and measure the energy with which electrons move from the ammeter to the collector. By adjusting this voltage, we can study how the electrons respond to different electric fields. So, about the photoelectric current, we can say photoelectric current is the flow of electrons from the emitter to the collector when light hits the emitter. We can increase or decrease this current by changing the potential of the collector plate at A relative to emitter plate C. This means that by making the collector more positive or negative, we can attract or repel electrons. So it's important to note that we can also vary the intensity and the frequency of the light shining on the emitter, as well as the voltage V between the plates. Changing the intensity means adjusting how bright the light is, while changing the frequency means using different energies of light. This adjustment helps us explore how different factors influence the emission of electrons and deepen our understanding of the photoelectric effect. So let's look at the experimental setup for the photoelectric effect. So intensity of radiation and frequency of incident radiation, photo potential difference between plates A and C, nature of the material of plate C. All right. So uh, notice that we can use light of different frequencies by placing colored filters or colored glass in the path of the light before it hits the emitter. Frequency refers to how many wave cycles pass a point per second, measured in hertz. By changing the color of the filter, we change the frequency of the light, which lets uh, study how different frequencies attract emission of electrons. We can also change the intensity of light, which means how bright or powerful the light is. This is done by moving of light source closer or further from the emitter. Intensity is measured in watts per second per square meter, W per meter square. By increasing the intensity, we increase the number of photoelectrons hitting the emitter per second, but the energy of each photon depends only on the frequency, not the intensity. So let's look at how the photocurrent changes when we vary the intensity of light in photoelectric experiment. Here is the experiment setup. We have a cathode C and a collector A, which with light shining on the cathode. The diagram shows how everything is connected. Remember, the photocurrent is the electric current produced when the light causes electrons to be ejected from the metal surface. So, collector A is maintained at a positive potential with respect to C, so that electrons ejected from C and attracted towards collector A. We keep two things constant, the frequency of the light and the accelerating potential between A and C. Frequency is the energy of light, and the accelerating potential is the voltage difference that pulls electrons from C to A. By holding this steady, we make sure that any changes we see in the photo current are only due to changes in light's intensity, not from the factors, not from other factors. Uh, Now, intensity of light, which means we change how bright the light is while keeping frequency and voltage fixed. So each time we adjust the intensity, we measure the resulting photocurrent. This experiment helps us see the direct relationship between the light intensity and the number of electrons ejected, showing that the higher intensity leads to a higher photocurrent as more photons hit the surface and release more electrons. So let's look at this graph, which shows that the photocurrent increases linearly as we increase the intensity of the incident light. Notice how the line goes straight up, meaning that if we double the intensity of light, the photocurrent also doubles. This direct relationship is important because it tells us the brighter light causes more electrons to be emitted per second. This happens because the photocurrent is directly proportional to the number of photoelectrons emitted every second. In the other words, the more electrons that are knocked out of the material by the light, the higher the current we measure. So, this implies that the number of photoelectrons emitted per second is directly proportional to the intensity of incident radiation. Now, let's focus on what happens when we shine light of a fixed frequency, which we call mu, and a fixed intensity labeled I1. All right. So, frequency measured in hertz tells us how many wave cycles pass per second, and intensity measured in watts per second meter tells us how much energy the light delivers per second per unit area. This light provides the energy needed for electrons to escape from the metal surface. Plate A is a set at a positive potential compared to plate C. This means plate A is at a higher voltage, which attracts the electrons emitted from plate C towards itself. Think of it like creating an electric field that helps pull the electrons across the gap. This setup allows us to measure the resulting photocurrent or the flow of electrons. Now, let's focus on what actually we do in the experiment. We gradually increase the positive potential of plate A and measure the photocurrent each time. Remember, the positive potential means we are making plate A more attractive to the electrons emitted from the C. Alright, this setup helps us see how the electrons respond to the different voltages, and it's important to record the current at each step. As we increase the positive or accelerating potential, we observe that the photoelectric current also increases. This happens because a higher positive voltage pulls more electrons across the gap. So more of them reach plate A and contribute to the current. This result shows us that the applied voltage directly affects how many photoelectrons are collected. As we increase the positive potential on plate A, more and more emitted electrons are attracted and collected by it. At a certain point, every electron that is emitted from the C by plate A, uh, emitted from plate C and collected by plate A, and the current reaches its maximum value. This is called saturation current. It's important to note that beyond this point, even if we keep increasing the potential positive voltage, we can't collect more electrons because all available electrons are already being captured. So, increasing the accelerating potential of plate A any further does not increase the photocurrent. This tells us that the number of electrons emitted depends only on intensity of the incident light, not on the applied voltage beyond saturation. So once we reach saturation or current, stays constant no matter how much more we increase the voltage. All right. Now let's focus on the concept of saturation current. This is the maximum value of photoelectric current. Once we reach this point, increasing the potential further does not increase the current. In other words, all the photoelectrons that can possibly be emitted are already reaching the collector, so the current can't go any higher. Remember, saturation current is a key indicator that the system is collecting all available photoelectrons. Saturation current corresponds to the case when all photoelectrons emitted by the emitter plate C reach the collector plate A. This means the applied potential is strong enough to sweep up all the emitted electrons. So none are left behind. As we move forward, keep in mind that reaching saturation current tells us we have maximized the collection of the photoelectrons for the given light intensity. Now, uh, what happens when we apply a negative or retarding potential to plate A compared to plate C? This means we are making it harder for the electrons to reach plate A by increasing the negative voltage step by step. As we do this, fewer electrons have enough energy to overcome the opposing voltage. So the photo current starts to decrease. This shows us that the applied potential directly affects how many electrons can reach the collector plate. If we reverse the polarity, making plate A even more negative, the electrons are now repelled instead of attracted. This means only the most energetic electrons can reach plate A, and eventually the current drops to zero. This demonstrates that the direction and magnitude of the applied voltage control the flow of electrons in the photoelectric effect. Now, only the sufficiently energetic electrons are able to reach the collector A. All right. This means that if an electron does not have enough kinetic energy, if it won't reach the collector, specifically if the potential is negative and opposes their motion. So photocurrent depends on both the energy of the electrons and voltage we apply. As we keep increasing the negative potential on plate A, you will notice that the photocurrent drops quickly and eventually reaches zero at a specific value called the stopping potential V0. This stopping potential is the exact voltage where even the most energetic electrons can't reach the collector. It's a sharp cutoff showing us that the energy of the emitted electrons is limited and directly related to the frequency of the incident light, not its intensity. Now, uh, the stopping potential, also called the cutoff potential, which we write as V naught. This is the minimum negative voltage we need to apply to the collector plate so that the photo current drops to zero. In other words, it's the point where even the most energetic photoelectrons can't reach the collector. V naught is measured in volts and tells us about the maximum kinetic energy of the emitted electrons. All photoelectrons have the same energy when they leave the metal. Some have more have less, depending on how deep inside the metal they started and how much energy they absorbed from the light. This variation in the energy explains why the photocurrent does not stop instantly as we increase the negative potential, but gradually decrease until it reaches zero at the stopping potential. Now, uh, photocurrent, photoelectric current drops to zero when we apply a stopping potential that's the strong enough to repel even the fastest, most energetic photoelectrons. These electrons have the maximum kinetic energy, which we call Kmax. This means that if the voltage is high enough in the negative direction, no electrons can reach the collector and the current stops completely. So let's focus on the stopping potential, which we label as V naught. This value directly measures the maximum kinetic energy of the photoelectrons. The relationship is K max is equal to E V naught, where K max is the maximum kinetic energy in joules and E is the elementary charge. Now, uh, what happens when we repeat the experiment using light of the same frequency but with higher intensity, labeled I2 and I3, where I3 is the greater than I2 and I2 is greater than I1. So look at figure. It shows how the photocurrent increases as we use more intense light. This means more photons are hitting the surface, so more electrons are being released. Now observe that the saturation current, the maximum current we can get become higher as the intensity increases. This tells us that the more electrons are being emitted per second, and this number is directly proportional to the intensity of the incident light. However, the stopping potential, which is the minimum negative voltage needed to stop all electrons from reaching the collector, remains unchanged even when we increase the intensity. This shows that the energy of the each emitted electron depend only on the frequency of the light, not its intensity. Now, uh, for a given frequency of the incident light, the stopping potential does not depend on how intense the light is. Stopping potential is the minimum negative voltage needed to stop all photoelectrons from reaching the collector. This means that even if we make the light brighter, the voltage required to stop the electrons remains the same, as long as the frequency does not change. This shows us that the energy of each photoelectron depends only on the light's frequency, not its intensity. Maximum kinetic energy of the photoelectrons. This energy depends on the two things: the frequency of the light source and the type of material used for the emitter plate. It does not depend on how intense the light is. Now, uh, here we repeat the experiment using different frequencies of light, labeled as mu3 greater than mu2 greater than mu1. This means we are shining light of increasing frequency onto the photosensitive material and measuring the resulting photocurrent. As we change the collector's plate, notice the diagram, figure 11.11. It shows the basic setup for the photoelectric effect, where light hits a metal surface and electrons are emitted. Remember, frequency is measured in hertz and higher frequency means higher energy photons. It's important to note that during these measurements, both the intensity of the incident light and the type of photosensitive material are kept constant. This means we are only changing the frequency of the light, not how bright it is or what materials we are using. By controlling these variables, we can clearly see effect of frequency alone the photocurrent. The graph shown here plots photocurrent on the vertical axis and collector plate potential on horizontal axis. For different frequency of the incident light, the shape of the curve and here they shift depending on the frequency. So saturation current is the maximum current achieved when all emitted electrons are collected, and the stopping potential is negative potential at which the current drops to zero. For incident radiation of the different frequency, we obtain different values of stopping potential, but same value of saturation current. Now, the energy of the electrons that are emitted depending on the frequency of the incident radiation, not its intensity. That means if we use light with higher frequency, the electrons come out with more energy. So notice here that the stopping potential, the minimum negative voltage needed to stop the photocurrent completely, is more negative for higher frequencies of the incident radiation. In other words, you need a stronger opposing voltage to stop the more energetic electrons produced by higher frequency light. This shows us that as the frequency of light increases, the maximum kinetic energy of the emitted electrons also increases. Now, uh, mu 3 is greater than mu 2, which is greater than mu 1. Correspondingly, the stopping potential follow the order uh, V03 is greater than V02 greater than V01. This means that as we increase the frequency of incident light, the stopping potential also increases. Remember, the stopping potential is the minimum negative voltage needed to stop the most energetic photoelectrons. This shows us that higher frequency light gives electrons more energy, so we need a higher stopping potential to stop them. Now, frequency of the incident light increases, so the maximum kinetic energy of the photoelectrons also increases. This means that the higher frequency light gives more energy to each electron when it knocks them out of the metal. Therefore, to completely stop these faster, more energetic electrons, we need to apply a greater retarding or stopping potential. This means the stopping potential increases as the potential of the incident light increases. So, uh, look at graph. It shows the stopping potential labeled as V naught plotted against the frequency of the incident light labeled as mu. So here the graph is straight line. This means there is a direct linear relationship between between the stopping potential and the frequency of the light for the material. Higher the frequency, the greater the stopping potential required to stop electrons. So first, it shows uh, that the stopping potential V naught increases in the straight line fashion as the frequency of the incident radiation increases. All right. So a graph of the stopping potential V naught versus frequency of the incident light V naught. The graph shows that there exists a certain minimum cutoff frequency V naught, mu naught, for which the stopping potential is zero. And the slope of the V naught is versus mu. Graph is constant and independent of the material. All right. Now, uh, implications of the observations are: first, the maximum kinetic energy of the photoelectrons varies linearly with the frequency of incident radiation, but it is independent of its intensity. This means if we use the light with a higher frequency, the ejected electrons have more energy. However, this energy does not depend on how bright the light is, only on its frequency. Second, if the frequency of light is below a certain threshold called the cutoff frequency, no electrons are emitted at all, no matter how intense or brighter the light is. This cutoff frequency is unique for each material. Now, threshold frequency, which we write as mu naught. This is the minimum frequency of light needed to cause photoelectric emission from a metal surface. If the frequency of the incident light is below these values, no electrons are emitted, no matter how intense the light is. Think of it has the minimum energy needed to knock an electron out of the metal. Threshold frequency V naught is a different for different metals. The x-intercept of the graph gives the threshold frequency mu naught. So here, for two different metals A and B, the threshold frequencies as marked as nu naught and nu naught prime frequencies axis. The stopping potential V naught is plotted against the frequency of the incident radiation. Each metal has a different threshold frequency, which is the minimum frequency needed to just start electrons ejecting electrons. This graph clearly shows that the frequency increasing beyond the threshold. The stopping potential also increases, meaning the emitted electrons have more energy. A summary of the experimental features and observations of photoelectric effect. For a given photosensitive material and frequency, photocurrent is directly proportional to intensity of the incident light. In other words, if we double the intensity of light, the photocurrent also doubles. This tells us that the more intense light causes more electrons to be emitted per second, but each electron still has the same energy as before. So, saturation current is proportional to the intensity of incident radiation, whereas the stopping potential is independent of its intensity. So, for a given photosensitive material, there exists a threshold frequency mu naught below which no photo emission occurs. Above mu naught, the stopping potential is proportional to the frequency and independent of the intensity. Uh, Photoelectric emission is an instantaneous process. Time lag is less than 10 raised to the minus 9 second, which is a billionth of second. Now let's summarize what we have studied for so far in this lecture. We studied variation of the photocurrent with light intensity, frequency, potential difference, and material type. Photocurrent increases linearly with light intensity, keeping frequency and potential constant. Saturation current is reached when positive potential collects all emitted electrons. V naught is the independent of the light intensity but increases linearly with frequency. Threshold frequency nu naught is the minimum frequency below which no photoelectric emission. V naught versus frequency graph is linear with x intercept giving threshold frequency. Photoelectric emission is instantaneous and maximum kinetic energy of photoelectrons depends on frequency, not intensity. Now we have some practice questions. First, if the intensity of incident light is doubled, keeping frequency constant, what happens to the saturation current? What is the minimum frequency of incident radiation below which no photoelectric emission occurs called? Thank you for your attention. I hope this lesson was helpful. Thank you.